Okay, at 6 o'clock, we'll call the meeting to order. We'll all, if you will, stand and pledge allegiance to the flag, and after that, Councilman Coleman will give the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and unto the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us bow our heads in prayer. Creator God, whose presence goes by many names, Spirit of love, Spirit of justice, Spirit of community. Open our hearts in the quietness of this room that we may feel your presence in our midst. In the busyness of this day and the intensiveness of our thoughts, may we not be so consumed by our personal agendas that we lose sight of our common purpose, providing leadership to a town that serves its citizens with respect and with fairness, a town that reflects your presence. Tonight, may we listen to one another with understanding. May we respect one another even when there is disagreement. And may we together find solutions to our many challenges. We give thanks for the blessings you have bestowed upon this town. The natural beauty that surrounds us, the opportunities to voice our thoughts and concerns, the willingness to reach out in compassion to others. Guide us now with your presence, as in your many holy names, Spirit of love, Spirit of justice, Spirit of community, we offer this prayer. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Councilman Coleman. Okay, all of you have had the opportunity to review the minutes of our special meeting on May the 22nd, our regular meeting on May the 9th, and our closed session on May the 22nd. Do we have any changes or amendments to the minutes? If not, okay. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, now we will have a presentation from the Edenton Education Foundation by Mr. Lee Snipes. Over there, sir. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to come before y'all and talk a little bit about the Edenton Shawan Education Foundation. It's been my pleasure recently to join the Education Foundation as their incoming chairman. And you may or may not know this, but the Edenton Shawan Education Foundation was begun back in the 1970s, but the real growth that we've had with the foundation came about when Joy Harville took over as executive director and has helped organize and spearhead a lot of the growth that we've seen over the last 5 years. During the past week, we've had the opportunity to speak with Aaron Boston and Roger Coleman to discuss potential donation from the town of Edenton to the foundation, and just to reiterate, the purpose of the foundation is to support by aiding and promoting education in Shawan County, North Carolina. So that's what we're trying to move towards and be a little bit more focused on doing that. Most of our conversations about how we as a foundation can work with the town and others to provide additional support that they may need. And this is your donation if you decide to make it to the Edenton Shawan Education Foundation would be a major step for us in helping us to complete some of the things that the schools need, the children need, and the teachers need. After talking to Aaron and Roger and to Mike things we're going to do, we'd like to have the funds come in that we can dole out in mini grants, usually about a maximum of about $500 per mini grant, to be able to see what's needed from the teachers and the students, and what the desires of the county would be. It's also our proposal that rather than sit here and give you some big proposal currently, that we come back periodically, quarterly or semi-annually, to discuss with you how we've been able to utilize the funds that have been provided to us for those purposes. We have about 1,900 students in the 4 schools in Edenton, Chowan. A grant of about, if we've talked about $25,000 to $35,000, $35,000, just to kind of give you some sense of the size of that, would be about $18.50 per student that we would have as an allocation to help you put it in monetary terms. But having said that, we're in the process right now of providing a 2023 teachers' financial needs survey. So all the teachers, about 140 teachers, will be returning this needs survey so that we can better understand where they need the money and what money is coming from the education side through their superintendent. So that's kind of my summary of where we are. Any questions right now, or anything that I can expand upon?
Question?
Mm-hmm.
We talked a little bit, but I thought about it. I think I was not prepared to understand that the school system doesn't provide, in all cases, supplies, funding for field trips. Many of the activities that children benefit from, they simply are not there in the funding. You're trying to, as I understand it, to fill that gap and provide the extras for children.
That's exactly right. So we would be looking towards field trips for children or high school. How do we support the teachers, what they need, because a lot of the teachers put their own money to work, for their classrooms and buying supplies. So do they need additional help? And is it within the budget of the Edenton Educational Foundation to assist them in that way? So we're trying to have a better understanding of how best to utilize the funds coming in to us. We also have some other donors that have approached us recently in a very generous way, and want to have some talks too, Roger, about how they might be able to provide additional support.
If a teacher has an individual need for a classroom, who would that teacher go to?
They would submit a grant application through the Edenton Chowan Education Foundation, and for any monies that we're involved in.
Would that be approved by the teacher's supervisor, the principal, or?
It would go up through the principal. He would know
Okay.
about it,
Okay.
and we would discuss with him what the needs are,
Gotcha.
rather than having 50 teachers
Yeah.
say, I need $500 each.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I think it's a very good idea. Being a former teacher here, and my mother taught in the public schools here for almost 40 years, teachers and students need all the help they can get, because we're living in some troublesome times now. We need to get everything to them,
Yes, sir.
make it a little better.
And that's a very good point. We've been talking about that, especially that 3rd to the 8th grade, how important that is to give them a solid foundation, to be able to carry on in high school.
Yeah.
One thing that I'd like to share here, so I have had some conversations with Dr. Sasser as well as Joy with the foundation to kind of explain, some of the thought process with the foundation is, she had shared with us that there was definitely more of a need for resources and for opportunities for the kids than what they currently were able to provide. And particularly one thing to note here when we talk about, field trips, one thing to share that we found out is that, oftentimes if there's a competition that's academia-based or something for a club, and those students may have the opportunity to go to a state or national competition for whatever they, are focusing on. That's oftentimes when we talk about field trips where they've seen some opportunity, where they really have to get out there and try to fundraise to really try to get what they can to even go to those state and national competitions. And, for our kids to win locally and regionally and then not have the opportunity potentially to go to a state or national competition. I wanted to kind of share that when we talk about particularly field trips, because most of what we have discussed is academia-based, and there is a need to kind of further what the kids' exposures are.
Lee, do you have a figure of what you're looking for from us, or? I know you'd like to have as much as we can give you.
That's exactly right. How high can I go? But, when you think about it, we discussed 25, 35,000. 35,000 would help us immensely in providing the resources we need. And as I said, that's about $18.50 per student that we'd be able to, think in terms of how much, we're providing to each student. And that's not even including what the what the teachers may need. So we have other sources of income, but this would be a major step.
So, Mayor, I have a question, and Lee, thank you for all your work and the foundation's work. And I definitely feel like there's a gap there that the foundation is narrowing, and that perhaps we can help out with. What's the next step? He's made this presentation. Do we put it on a committee meeting and perhaps vote on it, or what can we do to help them here in the near future?
Councilman High, so what we've done is we currently have set up a line item as a placeholder for the initial $25,000 in this year's budget. Council will host a special meeting for full council for the final budget review before it's voted upon on the 27th. And at that time, that's where we'll go into further discussion. Is it a $25,000, $30,000, or $35,000 allocation? But we have already.
I had just asked him if he had put anything.
Can we take that a little higher? It's for our kids.
We can discuss that more
Okay.
when we go through the budget meeting, but be assured that we did at least initially have that $25,000 placeholder there until we got into that special meeting to go through all that.
And Councilman Bond, if I may say, being a South Carolina boy, bless your heart. So, thank you very much for that.
The school system needs all the help financially they can get.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Mr. Snipes, both Councilman Coleman and I appreciate the meeting this past Friday or Thursday. It was a pleasure and being able to identify some of those needs and, being able to assist in any capacity that we can. So thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Anything else that I can answer or do for y'all?
Anybody else have any questions for Lee? If not, thank you, sir. We appreciate your taking up your time to bring that to us today. Okay, and the next is a presentation from the Northeastern Regional Airport, and that's going to be with Mr. Chuck Schmiller.
Good evening. I bring you greetings from your Northeastern Regional Airport Commission. Councilman asked me to come here this evening and give you an upbriefing on what we feel is some very exciting news about things going on at the airport. Won't be asking for any money this evening.
Thank you.
I'll be giving you news of tens of millions of dollars that's going to be put into our airport over the next couple of years. Before I begin, I would one of which is here this evening, and that's Harry Davis, our airport manager. I've been in this airport business for 50 years now, and he has been the finest airport manager I've ever had the privilege of working with. Not here this evening, and the reason that I am currently the chairman of the Airport Commission is Mr. Jim Callback, who's been on the commission for 30 years and is no longer able to serve because of the illness of his wife and himself as well. So he stepped on as chairman a few months ago. We created the position of chairman emeritus to recognize his almost lifelong commitment to the airport. I guess that's as good a place to start as any. Do you have a pointer? No pointer. Okay. That's not the one I want to start with.
We got one of those red line things somewhere. Where's it?
Okay. Here are some current projects and the amount of the grants that we're expecting, and federal share, state share, and how much we're going to ask the town of Edenton to participate, which is, you can see that column is all zeros. Okay? So the first thing is going to be to repave the runway and rehab the lighting down the sides of the runway. We have lights there at night, so when airplanes come to land, they land between the lights and not outside the lights in the grass. Then parallel to the runway is a taxiway, a long taxiway, which will be extended and will be redone at some point. And then we want to build some additional hangars for rental income out there. This all, if you add this all up, we're looking at $28 million. Okay. And now these are pretty well funded here. In fact, one of them is ready to go, and we kind of slowed it down a little bit so we could catch up with the other one, and I'll show you that in a couple of minutes. And that's this one right here. This one is probably a year or two away, but it's going to get done because that parallel taxiway is 80 years old. And this one, we're waiting for funding from the state legislature, potential for that. Did I lose my page turner? Okay, thank you, Council. Okay, so now trying to relate that last graphic. If I can. So the very first one was the runway 119 pavement way rehab. That is this yellow striping. Currently, this runway is 100 feet long. The government built it during the Second World War. That was the standard. That's from tip to tip. We have a paved keel in the middle of it that's 100 feet wide. So that means the ears are 25 feet on either side. And the state is going to come in and remove those ears because the runway lighting is surface mounted on them and the pavement's in bad shape and they'd have to resurface mount on there, and it's just a mess. So we're going to cut that out, backfill it, and put the sod in there, and then they'll put all new lighting in and a new electrical wall, control wall. So that's the one that is actually funded. It could start late this summer if we wanted to, but I've asked the state to not do that, to combine it with repaving the keel, because we're going to have to shut the airport down, and we don't want to shut it down more than once. And it could be shut down for anywhere from 60 to 90 days. There's some potential that we might be able to shut it down in phases and use part of it and all that sort of thing. There's going to be some disruption. There's no question about it. But it's an $11 million project with no match. So I think it's well worth it. Now, Harry Davis has come up with the possibility of maybe using the parallel taxiway as an interim runway. And we're working on that. There's no guarantee that we can do that. But we're working towards that direction. So even if this is shut down, then we'll be able to use the parallel taxiway to land and take off small aircraft. Because, believe it or not, there are 43 jobs at this airport. And that payroll is somewhere in the $1.2 million range. We have people depend on this airport for their livelihood. So we don't want to just shut it down, cut the revenue stream off, and really tear up our budget on top of everything else. So So, but this is not a done deal. We have work to do on this. Yes, sir.
Chuck, who has to approve the fact of using that second runway?
You-
FFA?
you do.
We do, okay.
Yeah, but it is with the advice of the FAA and the DOT, DOA, Division of Aviation. And so what they don't want to be in the approval business. They want us to take the risk.
Okay.
And that's okay, as long as they tell us what we need, what hoops we have to jump through to mitigate that risk. And minimize that risk.
Okay.
And our engineering firm, Talbot and Bright, which by the way is the finest airport engineering firm I've had the pleasure to deal with, seems to think we have a pretty good chance of getting what, Harry, 3,000 feet over there?
At least 3,000,
Yeah.
possibly a little more.
And that'll keep us open. And one of my big concerns was, you know, while they're working here, crossing over, but they're gonna do all their staging down here. See, there's a little road right here. So the materials and men and everything will come this way. They won't have to cross through here. So that's that first project, 11 million even. The runway keel was expected to be done, what, the spring of '24. So we're not pushing back the lighting project that far. There's a 4-year life on these grants, so that's well within that 4 years, I'll be able to get it done. The next one is the taxiway rehab. That is this blue project here. Currently, this taxiway stops right here. Okay, and it does not go around here. The FAA does not like that because you have to back taxi. In other words, if you want to use the full length of runway 19, come up here, you have to do this. And they don't like that because you have to turn your back on oncoming traffic. And that is a safety consideration. So the intention is to lengthen this, tie it into the end here, lengthen this, tie it into the end here. And this one's coming out, right, Harry?
Yes.
This one's coming up, and the plans are to take this one out. That project is the paltry sum of $11,250,000. That's today's guesstimate. These are pretty much guesstimates. Now, this is an interesting project we've been involved in for some time. You know, we have really just a few sources of revenue out here to try and make this thing self-supporting. One, of course, is all the hangars out here pay taxes, and the airplanes pay ad valorem taxes. Well, the town of Edenton's share of that is very small. I think it's 1.36% or something to the county and the state, and I think the town gets 0.36 or maybe a little bit more than that, let's say half a point. So there's a little bit of real estate tax, and there's some rent from the ground underneath these hangars, this one, this one, this one, this one, and then the town owns these 6 hangars here, and this hangar, we collect rent on those hangars, and it has one strip of T hangars. But it's a limited amount of rent. It's not like we get really rich off it. So we've come up with another project where we would come in here and build a road and parking areas, and then another row of these 50 by 50 box hangars, and then there'd be a spot for some T hangars, and then a couple of larger 100 by 100 box hangars as well. Representative Ed Goodwin is working on this with the state. What do you think, Harry? We over 50-50 yet, or?
He gave me the thumbs up at the vote doc a couple of days ago.
Okay, sounds pretty
I take
good.
that as a positive sign.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is what they refer to, and you probably understand this better than I do, as earmark money at the end of the fiscal year. So we may get it, we may not get it. But if we would get it, it's another $5.8 million. And so when you add those things up, if my crude math is okay, we're looking at $28 million coming into this town, into that airport. And it will revitalize this airport in the sense that it will be first-class airport. I'll put it up against any general aviation airport in the state of North Carolina. Change to that BIL. Now, added to that, just recently, we received notice that we are eligible, or going to be eligible, if not partially eligible, that bipartisan infrastructure law money. You know, the Biden administration, remember the hundreds of billions of dollars to fix roads and all that stuff. Well, $15 billion of it went for airports. And these are our allocations for the various years, 2022 fiscal years. It's 176,667, and we're responsible for 10% of it. Don't get excited, I'm not asking for any money yet. 23, 161. These are available now. So we essentially have 300,000 available to us as we speak, okay? In addition to that. This is what our engineer tells us to expect from the grant, another $500,000 or so. So the total is 844, 760, 84 match. However, if that money is used for safety-related projects, there is no match. So obviously, at the Airport Commission, when we're trying to decide where we're going to throw this money around, we're looking at safety-related projects. What's a safety-related project? Well, one thing is that using that taxiway as a runway during the construction, so that people have a place to land, they don't try to land on the runway. So that's, and you know, there's some money involved in there. I mean, that could be, we figured, what, $50,000 to, because you could convert it and then convert it back to a taxiway, and then they'll come back and dig it all up and turn it into a real nice taxiway. I think, I mean, Harry may not agree with me on this, but I think the fencing could be construed to be a safety issue too, because of wildlife getting on it. You know, we have very little fencing, if any, around the airport. I've had some pressure from commercial users about the condition of the FBO building now. And by the way, when I said 43 jobs, $1.2 million in payroll, I'm not talking about the North Carolina Department of Transportation, Department of Transportation, Division I Engineering Office in that building. I got nothing to do with those numbers. I mean, this is just like real money. But the commercial users that come in, I got customers come in, you know, the bathrooms are seedy looking. It is shop worn. It was done quite a few years ago. This money could be, we would have to match that part though. So if we were going to put 200,000 into renovations inside there, just for refitment, just as an example, we'd have to figure out some way to cover the other 20,000. But I can understand, you know, there's a major employer here in town has something to do with tires. I won't mention it. They have business associates that come in. They got to use the bathroom, and it is sort of shop worn. Anybody disagrees with me, come out and take a look. Harry will be happy to show you around, or if I'm around, I'll be, or you want me to be around, I'll be happy to show you around.
Chuck, do you have a problem with deer out there?
Yes.
Is that a major problem?
Yes. We have a homemade solution for that, but the fencing would contribute dramatically to that. Now, you know, this is not your 4-foot chain link fence to keep your dog in the yard. These things are what, 8-10 feet tall, wire on top, and they have to be, they get down underground too, because varmints can get through that way. Yes, we do, no question about it. And you haven't lived till you've seen a medium-sized corporate airplane that's hit a deer, what it does to it. I mean, it's just unbelievable, and you know, kill people pretty easily.
Yeah.
Yes, sir, Mr. Coleman.
Where do you see the future growth in terms of traffic at the airport? Where do you see that coming from? What types of new things do you see in the future for the airport?
Yeah, I don't see any commercial scheduled service at the airport, like commuter airplanes, that sort of thing. I just don't see that working out here. We don't have the population density for that. I see a future for air taxis, visit the business people, for some of our tourist events, that's where I see it, is in air taxis. Now also, if we can get some, we can't keep hanging. People want them all the time. I'm not saying that there's an infinite number of people that want hangers, but I'm quite sure that if we build those hangers, they will come. And that brings more airplanes, which brings more fuel sales, which is how that's the other revenue stream we have, is fuel sales. You know, it's the taxes, a little bit of rent, and fuel sales. So it'll bring more fuel sales. And that reminds me, can you put the graphic back up again? There are two other projects that I want to bring to your attention, And these are just in the planning stage. I'm not even gonna tell you who the customers are at this point, but just give you, I'll tease you with this, just to give you an idea. We have one commercial operator, I'm quite sure you would know who it is if I told you, who wants to build a 20,000 square foot facility right here. I believe that's the location right here, yeah.
Yes, that is correct.
And multi-airplane operations. That would be a good thing for us. If we can, if the right proposal is received and the right situation is negotiated between the town and the operator, it could be good business for us. We've also got another operator who wants to build a 100, is this it, Harry, right here?
That is correct.
Yeah, another 100 by 100, which is a decent-sized commercial, or decent-sized corporate hangar. You can put any size corporate airplane in a 100 by 100, and certainly in a 20,000 square foot one. So, but that's where I see it, Mr. Coleman, is air taxi operations in and out of here for business purposes in this region, not just necessarily Edenton, but anywhere between here and Elizabeth City and here in Williamston, and people coming for recreational events. Anything else I can help you with?
How do you contrast the asphalt mixture for comparing a runway with a regular road? Is there that much?
Is there any significant differences at all?
Yes, there is.
Okay.
When you're involved with federal and state money, they've got all sorts of stipulations. The engineer and the contract, it is different, yes.
Okay, I was thinking, yeah.
And the thing about an airplane is, you take a decent-sized corporate jet, medium-sized, I'm talking about a great big airplane. They can weigh 70,000 pounds, and they might have 5 wheels, 2 on each main, 1 in the front, and they have that much times 5 hitting the runway when they land.
Yeah.
And some pilots are good at it, some like me, it's
Corey, how does this tie in with our lobbying efforts with Mr. Simon? Is this related?
Yes. So the project that we talked about for the 5.8 million, that's really kind of split into 2 pots. One being the taxiway funding dollar amount, and then the second being the actual hangar. So we're optimistic for the total amount, but for us, at bare minimum, from those lobbying efforts, we would like to see at bare minimum the additional taxi space for the hangars if they were broken out into a biannual budget with the state versus a one-time earmark, maybe a 2-time. So, yes.
Now, I might add, we can use that BIL money for hangars, but it's got to be matched. That's the issue there. Now, and I'm not saying it can't be done. There's creative ways to do that. But it's not the same as using it for safety-related items, because then you don't have a match. It's prima facie, no match. So we do have some flexibility. If we didn't quite get 5.8 million and we needed something to round it out, we could use the BIL money, but we'd have to do something about that shortfall of the 10%. Anything else? Okay, well, thank you for having me. I certainly hope you're as excited about all this as I am. I mean, any
I can
time.
assure you we are, and
We
thank
are.
you very much for
Yeah,
coming
anytime.
and presenting this to us.
Okay,
Very interesting.
all right, take care.
Thank you.
We're gonna go eat dinner now.
Thank you.
See you then. Bye-bye.
Okay, that takes it for our presentations. And next, we go into our committee reports, and the first is the Administrative Committee, and that's chaired by Councilman Hyde.
Thank you, Mayor Stallings. We only have one agenda item to discuss and consider tonight, and that is our job description and pay grade for our groundman apprentice job under the electrical department. And you may recall at our last meeting, we had reported that there was a little bit of an inconsistency in our job description and pay grades, such that an apprentice would have a starting salary that would equal someone who had been with us for 3 years. And although we want to have competitive starting salaries, we also want to be fair to our people that have worked hard and been loyal to us for 3 years. So this job description change and pay grade change would allow us to have a situation where the apprentice would not be paid the same thing that our 3-year employer would have. Corey, I don't know if you wanted to provide any more specifics in that, but we just wanted to address that in both the job description and the pay grade.
That is correct, Councilman High, and also in the interim fiscal 23/24 budget, those newly created positions were taken into account versus our 2 vacant third-class lineman positions to help with some of the salaries and wages there.
And Mayor, when we discussed it at committee, they got a favorable recommendation that we vote on it tonight and approve it, and I put that in the form of a motion.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion in 2 seconds. Any further discussion?
A question. No employees are affected by this. Is that right? Got it.
This would only be new hires.
We say, Corey?
This would only be for new hires starting July 1. These positions would be,
Any further discussion? If not, hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And Mayor, that completes our reports.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank
And
you.
The next is our Finance Committee, and that's normally chaired by Councilman Dixon, but in his absence, I'll ask for Mr. Corey.
Thank you, Mayor. And so just to provide everyone with an update, an email was sent out to try to gauge the council's availability for the remainder of this week as well as next week before we go towards our final meeting of the fiscal year on the 27th. I haven't finalized the date for that, but that will be decided upon this week. We'll share that with the general public. That will be in the form of a special meeting. That will be for full council as well as open to the general public. We do have a very good first draft in place. Imagine there will be some minor changes after our special meeting, and any considerations that we may have coming in from public comment, which is tonight, and we'll continue to receive those as well. And so no real update other than we've got a special meeting hopefully slated by the end of this week, if not the first of next.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, now we move on to new business, the USDA amended letter of conditions for our wastewater treatment renovations. And we have with us tonight Monica Thornton and Hillary Lassiter. And Corey, okay.
I want to thank Monica and Hillary for being here. This has been a rather challenging process since January. Not because of our USDA partners, but
Monica said no.
because of
It wasn't challenging at all.
the pricing increases on some of these large projects, pre-COVID versus post-COVID, and I think that's really the biggest driver for
It
this.
has been a challenge.
The floor is yours.
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to say it is always a pleasure to come to the town of Edenton. My name is Monica Thornton, and this is Hillary Lassiter. Usually you see me when it comes to police cars, fire trucks, garbage trucks, things like that. But right now, we had a little shift in duties, and we were able to get Hillary on board with us. So now we're here for the wastewater treatment plant. And like Corey said, this project was funded back in 2020 to do renovations to the wastewater treatment plant. And it does take a little bit of time to get everything together. And then when it was finally bid, we had a shortfall. So what we're here tonight is to offer a funding package for the shortfall. Okay?
Which was quite a shortfall.
Just a little. You want to go?
Sure.
All right.
So, you want me to discuss numbers or?
Yep.
Okay.
The difference.
Okay.
Did
This is my
everybody
first
get a
time.
copy
so-
of the package so that you could go through that before the meeting so we can answer any questions? Because we're here today to offer the board a funding package. So we would need a vote once we finish our presentation. and answer your questions. So that's what we're here for tonight.
Okay. So tonight, we're here for the subsequent funding of the loan amount of $1,949,000 and the grant amount of $3,200,000.
For the shortfall.
That's just for the shortfall. For the original that's already funded, the loan amount. The loan amount was $4,006,000 and the grant amount was $1,988,000.
So you got almost a $10 million project
Yeah.
to do the renovations that are needed for the wastewater treatment center. Which back when it was originally funded, the project would have been about $5 million. We have no control over that, but we're just thankful that we're here to help fill the gaps a little bit.
And that's a matter of, what, 3 or 4 years?
So
It was funded in 2020.
23 years.
So it's
3
taken
years.
3 years. And that's typical.
Yeah.
It takes, when you're trying to do a water or sewer project, you know, just, if you come to us and you get funded, then you gotta get to the final design, and then you've got to get the easements, and so it's not a quick process like it is for a fire truck or a police car. It does take time, and then we had COVID and supply and demand changes, issues, so it's been a combination of everything. If you're doing anything nowadays, it's probably twice as much as you thought it was 2 or 3 years ago.
And to give you kind of a little bit of background on the timeline, you know, the original project started around 2017. During our due diligence, up until the point of getting the original $5.9 million funding application together, that's a 3-year period between the town, the engineering service providers, as well as the state review, which there are multiple iterations that come to us and then goes back to the state. And then, you know, we run most of the easements as well as the title, clarity, all of that kind of runs in parallel. And just to give you an idea of that difference, you know, we were talking originally around a $4 million loan with a $1.9 million grant. And what we're talking about today in total compared to those 2020 dollars, the project funding packet is for 11.1 million, of which
That's right.
what Monica and Hillary are here tonight for is 5.8 million in grant and a total of 5.9 million in loan. So
That's right.
roughly a 50-50, pretty close to a 50-50 match, maybe a 51-49, which is one.
And that's pretty good considering the cost of the project, which this includes any construction and what we refer to as soft costs. So, I mean, the project basically doubled in price.
Yeah.
So to be able to say that you've got almost 50% of that project funded or proposed to be funded with grant money is absolutely amazing.
Yes.
Absolutely amazing.
Corey in Virginia, where does this put us in terms of the requirements of the local government commission so that our loans aren't over a certain amount, and also our own internal policy so that our loans aren't over a certain amount?
This would fall under the water sewer category, and they technically do not have a statute in place for debt. Typically, it runs about 50% of the enterprise revenue. So we'll be pretty close to that with the other projects that we have already established and have debt service payments for.
So does this put us in a position where we need to hold off on similar expenditures until we can get that percentage down?
We'll
Is that what?
definitely take a look at it, and I'll prepare another statement to show you the projection once we get the interest rate and all that established.
But you guys feel like we're all right monetarily?
Yes, I do, and a lot of the precaution when we talk about this type of project, you know, holistically, we approach the LGC when there's a spending dollar amount over $1 million for a local municipality, particularly when we go through these high dollar amount water and sewer loans and or grants. There is a lot of technical review, and if you notice on your agenda, this is really step one to build out everything that's needed for that LGC packet, which we're shooting for their July meeting.
Okay.
So as soon as we get all of this handled tonight between the bond council as well as the proposal agreement, we will have most of the documentation there, and we'll be glad to provide you with the debt service ratio for the Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund
Right
once
now,
all
it's
this is.
about 10% of the budget is our debt service payments.
Okay.
I think at some point, some time ago, we asked for like a quarterly
A quarterly
update on
report,
that.
yeah. And you've been doing that. You've been giving us
Yes.
report.
And what's the term of this loan?
40 years.
What's the interest rate from USDA?
2.25% on this portion.
Okay, that's right. Hey, thank you very much.
And I just wanted to remind, because I know I see some new faces since the last time I came. Rural Development's loan is the permanent financing. So the town will work with LGC to get permission to incur debt. But then LGC will also assist them getting the construction loan. Then once everything is finished, that's when we'll come in and we'll pay off the construction loan. And that's when your 40-year term will start, just to, for those first timers, so to speak. But we're the permanent loan financing.
So we'll have 40 years to pay back at 2 point whatever
25.
percent.
Right, on the subsequent part.
Corey,
Okay.
you don't see any problem with LCG on this, do you?
No.
Okay.
And LGC's been working with us since we received the bids back in January, ready to get us on the calendar. Any questions we've had, they've been ready for. And Virginia and I will have a wonderful trip, hopefully in July. Come back with some good news.
That's good news.
And heck, I want to be around for the note burning on that.
Mayor Statler.
But action is required, and just to provide some clarity here, so our minutes reflect appropriately, the action tonight is to approve the USD amended letter of conditions. And when there is a motion and a second, if you'll give me just a minute to note that in the resolution, if you don't mind.
These ladies have to have that to take back with them. So
And
at this
just-
time, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. The motion was by Councilman Coleman and second by,
And I need to.
You don't forget my name.
I will never forget your name, Mr. Bond.
All right, thank you, Mayor.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's good to get moving on this, Corey, is it not?
Yes.
Yeah.
This has been a very long process. Monica has held our hand, her and Hillary, through this in its entirety. I remember when we sat down in February and did the bid opening, and we looked at each other.
That was January.
January.
I was going to say that. We've come a long ways because the bid opening, the first one in January, nobody showed up.
Yeah, and we had to
Nobody came.
reissue the bid opening
Yes.
date,
Yes.
Yeah.
and the numbers came in, and we looked at each other and we're like,
Now what do we do?
what do we do now?
So once finalized, when will everything actually, when we break ground on
So
everything?
if we get the approval in July from the LGC meeting, the following morning, you will have a special meeting at 7:30 for approval of the LGC spending packet, so we can have the issue notice to proceed, hopefully, by the end of July.
Okay.
Do we have to do it at 7:30?
7:30.
And you've got is this the one with a 15-month construction period? And I know we've got like 8 going on at one time, so I don't want to confuse anybody.
This one's 15 or 18.
15 or 18 months, right. And so when we get the project, when the project gets to the point where we classify substantial completion, that's when our permanent loan closing will come in and pay off those bond anticipation notes or construction loan, and then we'll have our permanent loan closing and set up. That's when the 40-year terms will start.
And does a 15 to 18-month period include some wiggle room? Is it typically less than that? the
Well, it all
anticipated?
depends. When they issue the contract, they'll have starting dates and finishing dates. And nowadays, it's kind of hard to project anything. They're doing some renovations to our office in Winton. They said 6 to 8 weeks. I think it's been 6 weeks already, and we still don't have a ceiling or a floor, so, I mean, anything's possible. But we'll work with the town the whole time during the project. If the contractor has to extend the time of the project, that will be in the form of a change order, and then everybody will have to approve. You find it? It's all good.
Sorry,
It's all good. It's on the loan resolution form. I just want to commend Hillary. She came on my side, so to speak, in February, and I said, oh, by the way, we are super, super busy, so roll up your sleeves and get rolling. So I am very proud of her with the progress. This is her first cost overrun. It had to go all the way to the national office. They rubber stamped it and sent it back, and here we are to see y'all. So you're in good hands.
Great.
Did you find it?
Close. Keep
When
looking
you're
at
in
the
a
same
hurry, you never
page.
find anything, right?
We're looking for the motion and second. I thought it was at the beginning.
You got it here?
Yes, there it is, first page.
You got it on the other one already?
Yes.
We're good. And because we're working from home, we have no printer, no scanner, so I've asked if we could get these signs and somebody can run back down to the town hall and scan them to us real quick so we can send it to Raleigh and get the button pushed tomorrow.
Good,
So I
good.
apologize for the,
It's okay. We're moving on it.
you're fine.
We're all set. Do you wanna go or Tammy to?
Anita?
All right.
Take the, agenda out, Hillary. Take the agenda off, and not on the last page.
All set.
Yeah, but you scan or email it, we need the originals and the scan copy.
Send it to me and I'll forward it back to you. That way you don't have to move.
Okay, the next thing on our agenda is a proposal letter for McGuire Woods LLC. And Corey, I'll ask you to take that, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Part of the LGC required documents is approval of the resolution. That was included in the packet. This is from our bond counsel. What this is the application for the water and sewer bond anticipation. We have worked with, and we'll make the approval next with McGuire and Woods on this for quite some time now. What we have is the resolution providing for application to the local government commission for approval of water and sewer revenue bonds and bond anticipation note and certain related matters and findings. The action is required. Again, this is the second document that will be required for our application to the LGC meeting on July 17th.
Okay.
I'll be glad to answer.
Any questions of Corey on this? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved, Mayor.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, the next is a budget amendment for correction for the NC DOC building reuse grant. And Corey?
Actually, Mayor, we got one more thing, sorry. In addition to the water and sewer bond revenue, the next thing is the proposal letter. This is the proposal from the bond council that prepared the bond documents that we needed for the LGC packet. McGuire and Wood, we have worked with this group before, since 2017 on the original bid packet. All of this is included in the funding application with USDA and the construction loan and a total fee of $17,500. There are not a lot of groups that do this type of work, and so
see
this
why.
is the one that we work with that's the most familiar with this project. We ask that council approve the proposal letter from McGuire and Woods to continue their services now that we have a new funding packet together with USDA.
Okay. All right. So we'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further questions of Corey on this proposal?
Just a comment on Corey's last few seconds of his comments. There are very few firms around that do this type of work. I've worked with this group probably 10 times over the years, and given their level of expertise and the fact that nobody really does this, the services they're going to provide for that flat fee are certainly reasonable based on my experience.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, now we'll get to the budget amendment.
Thank you, Mayor. The next item is a budget amendment. This is actually a correction. When we originally presented the budget amendment for the North Carolina Department of Commerce Building Reuse Grant back on March 9th, there was a 5% match, which equated to roughly $1,250 for the town for the herringbone project here at the old Congress building. Since that time, we were able to provide in-kind services in order to meet the needs of the dollar amount for that 5% match. And so the budget amendment tonight is actually a correction for the full $25,000 to be holistically provided by the Department of Commerce versus the small match that the town would have had to contribute. The proprietor is here tonight. We have successfully presented that check, which we're very excited about. There were a lot of job requirements for job creation for that. Joe is here tonight on another item that's coming up, but we were very glad to have that done this week, and this budget amendment will represent that very successful project.
25,000.
Yes.
Okay.
So to receive 25,000, or is that correct?
Yes.
Okay,
for us to
gotcha.
receive 25.
Any further questions of Corey on this item? If not, I'll entertain.
So moved.
Just one other question. In the future, when the building reuse grant applications come, do we have the option of an in-kind match? Have we always had that, or have we not taken advantage of that?
We do, and it seems to change year to year based on.
Depending on the project.
Yeah,
Yeah.
depending on the category of the project, the status of the town or the county. Are you in an opportunity zone? Are you not in an opportunity zone? Which part of the state you're gonna, impacted by? It really changes, if we were in a different tier 1 versus tier 3, it shifts around. So we were very pleasantly surprised to see a deposit for the full $25,000 versus the $23,850 that we were anticipating.
Any more questions,
So moved.
sir?
So moved.
So we'll have a motion, we'll have a second. Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. The next is a budget amendment for insurance proceeds from a police department. We had a police car that got wrecked, and we've got insurance proceeds from that, so we need to, I guess, put it in the budget. So we need a motion on that.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Did the
How's
deer
it
do
dri-
us a favor?
Yes.
How is the officer?
The officer was not harmed, and visually looking at the vehicle, you would not expect it to be total. But when the officer swerved to avoid the deer on the way actually to work, by chance, run over top of a.
You've heard of running over a snag. He ran over a stump.
Stump. All right.
It really messed up the undercarriage where
Okay.
it was not
Total.
dropping.
Okay. Any further discussion, questions? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. The next one is a lease purchase agreement for 115 West Hicks Street. And Corey, we'll let you take that.
Thank you, Mayor. So I have worked back and forth with the owner for the primarily 115 West Hicks Street, which also includes 105 West Hicks, 108 West Peterson, and also 116 West Peterson, if you remember.
That's
over
the
a year ago.
old Ford dealership, if you,
Was Food Pantry there at one time?
They were.
Okay, it must have been a long time ago.
And before that, a Ford dealership, and way back when, actual cotton mill, very similar to what we had, I think a rosary mill is what it was called. We've had some time between the original sale of the property to the individual that we've been working with now. We had a lot of back and forth. We thought we had missed our chance to secure that property. I know we had talked about it before for additional or the new fire station in the future. Since that time, we have revisited the property with the current owner. This is a lease purchase agreement. This will allow us to go ahead and secure the property and start using it for additional parking for public works, as well as just public parking outside normal business hours. For example, for the school project or for the steamers. We would like to try to, once this is secured, enter into some type of memorandum of understanding with the county and the steamers to allow that, so we've got some additional parking while that high school project's going on there. But for us, it gives us the chance to go and secure the property, work through the details that we need to for our due diligence over the next 6 months before we exercise that purchase option. And so the document that you see tonight has been vetted by the town attorney. We've had just a very small back and forth with that, but the funding for the lease as well as the funding for the purchase option have been already budgeted for the town going forward for the fiscal 23/24 year. Very excited about this, for this to come back around for the town for its operations was quite a surprise.
And Corey, you and I have talked about this before, but for the general public, that is basically a street-to-street lot. It goes from Hicks Street all the way over to Peterson Street. And I believe that Chief Bass has said that that would be more than enough property for what he can see is there for foreseeable needs. Is that correct, Chief?
Yes, it would keep us from backing in off Broad Street.
Right.
And be plenty of land for expansion down the road later on.
The likelihood of us finding 4 parcels or the acreage that these 4 parcels equate to within Edenton, and particularly with them all being adjoining land, is quite a surprise, and it's a rare.
And in the meantime, steamers could use this for parking it.
We'll
During-
work out
during
all
the
that
school,
details, with the county after we get this property secured with this lease.
we were in the bidding for it previously, and the previous owner sold it out from under us, and we thought it was history, but they came back to us, and now we've got this opportunity again. So, any further questions?
Okay,
or-
copy.
Yes, I do. Go
Oh,
ahead,
go ahead, you
Roger.
go right ahead.
So to my understanding, like, it's going to be used for the future fire department, is that correct?
Yes,
But also EMT, is that right? Or is that
We
not an
have
option
not-
anymore?
We have not finalized those discussions yet.
What was the second?
If it would also include any of the emergency medical transport. That would be further discussion with the county right now for us securing the property with the intent of primarily using it for fire only, unless we enter into some type of future agreement with them. For now, we're just focused completely on the fire station.
Right, but that was an option at one point,
Yeah,
Sarah.
and we've
Okay.
had some conversations, but nothing formal, no formal approval, nothing along those lines.
So hypothetically, once we purchase the property, what's the timeline that we're looking at to actually, I guess when we're gonna start those talks of a new fire station?
I would say once we have removed ourselves from the lease and actually have cleared title to the property, that would be the appropriate time, so sometime after October.
Gotcha.
Before we even start any of that.
Which, within this fiscal year or?
it would be
Well,
the
23, 24.
23/24 fiscal year, and we may start the conversations by the end of the calendar year, but, I mean, at that point, there's ample time to go through that.
Okay.
That was my question. One other question, though. This is going to come over to Peterson Street. How does it tie in with the Golden Frinks project, putting that on the National Historic Register? Is this going to impact on that in any way? Assisted in any way? How would that work?
There is benefit there, that we could approach the state to try to get a better understanding for them, for any type of parking needs, when we talk about short-term parking and some of their long-term vision, but that, as well as the conversation with the county about the emergency management, or EMT services, we haven't got to, for it to come back around, that was, you know, kind of achievement number one for us, for it to come back on the table. But yes, it would. What are the details of that agreement or sale, or, I don't know yet.
Okay, any further questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I think we need a
We didn't vote
motion.
on it. We didn't make a motion yet.
No.
Yeah, you did.
Well, so moved. How about
Okay,
that?
so moved, a second. So we didn't,
Who that made a motion?
I thought you did too. Okay, do we have a motion? Yes.
Yes.
Do we have a second?
Yes.
Yes.
We do.
Thank you.
All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Are we all in agreement?
We're all in agreement.
All right, the next item is a pole lease agreement on 119 West Water Street, and that is from, and Joe is here tonight, from the, there's a pole on Water Street here that's not in use now, has previously been used for a sign, and, go ahead, Corey. Take it.
And so the particular location that we're talking about is just outside of the street right-of-way at the north end of the Colonial Park area. There's a formerly used business sign post, not quite sure what you call it, but we have received an initial request. If you remember in your packet, there was a rendering which was approved this past week for signage for the Herringbone Restaurant from the Preservation Commission. And at this point, now that has been approved, the last remaining item to actually place that sign, since the pole is on town one.
Corey, I need to correct you, we did not get approved, we did not submit that for approval until after.
Okay.
The other way around, we want to
Okay.
get this approval first.
And so the pole lease agreement, we were able to draft something with the town attorney, rather unique request. We don't have things like this that come up very often for a 2-inch pole to be leased. So we've got everything in there. This would be an annual lease at the grand sum of $100 a year to lease that pole. There's also provisions that have been included within this if there's any type of violation or anything for any type of grant agreements or for any type of termination of that facility being used as that restaurant, that it would revert back on those same clauses. If you remember, were in some of the agreements that we had originally on some of the area where the electric utilities were in the deck was at. This pole agreement is similar in structure to that, has been vetted by the town attorney. I think this is completely reasonable to allow this business to do that. Yes, sir.
Yeah, just two clarifications. One, the pole that we see in our packet, the black pole that goes up vertically, and then it looks like there's a extension that goes horizontally, that's existing, has
Yes,
been there.
that's there. That is there.
And then the second clarification is historically, back when the Northeast Partnership was there, they had a sign there
Yes.
that was allowed. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Did they pay, they lease that too? At that time, you know?
I do not know,
Just
of
wondering.
it was before my time, and I'm not sure how it got there. It's on town property, and at this point, I'm assuming it's ours.
Yeah.
And so,
And that's what we're dealing with.
Yeah, gotcha.
so,
Big business.
Are we responsible for maintenance at all of the pole? Is that in there?
no, I mean, we maintain the area now because it's part of
It
the
needs to be
park.
painted. Yeah.
I think that's a completely reasonable ask, but there's not very much we've done to it over the past X number of years.
Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion, Mayor.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further questions, comments?
Anybody else in town lease a pole? I mean, I was just wondering. Okay.
No, the closest thing we have to anything like this is with the telecom providers for
Okay.
electric.
All right.
It is the only type of pole agreement that we have, so we did our best to try to be reasonable about this request.
Yeah. Sounds good. Sounds good.
All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And Corey, I believe you said number 8 is out. We don't-
Yes, and
okay.
so no action. That is an original placeholder for the original funding request that Monica had sent that needed a revision that we've already approved on new business item number 1. So no action there. That is completely my fault.
Okay, and the next item is items that are considered timely and important. Anybody got, yes, sir, Mr. Bond?
I got a question. Today I saw them, the old Winn-Dixie, not Food Line store
Yeah.
out here in the north. They were doing some work on the roof up there. Has things been settled with that?
The bank owns that property now. It's been foreclosed on, and the bank owns the property. And they told Corey and I that they're going to be spending about $2 million on that building. They're going to redo the roof and several other things.
And so that is correct. And they have started some of the roof repairs.
I think they have hired Edenton Construction Company
Yes.
to do the work, so
They-
I didn't realize they had started, but
Yeah,
that's a
they-
good,
they
that's a
were-
good sign.
Yeah, it's a good sign. I was
Yeah.
wondering, you know.
Yeah.
So,
And we were supposed to have conversations with them once they actually started construction, which they've just recently done within the last 2 weeks, to help them with some of the information that we have on previous vendors or possible tenants that we've tried to entertain before when we were working with the Gemini folks, that we will be glad to share and work with the folks from Day Bank.
okay.
And Corey,
And
since,
And as I stated before, the bank that owns it, they have one stockholder.
One stock on?
One stockholder. And Corey and I met with him. I've never heard of a bank that only have one stockholder, but,
Is this the guy from Raleigh?
Powerful man.
huh?
That's powerful.
Yeah, he is.
Corey, because it's so closely related to an issue that we as councilmen hear about almost daily, and rightfully so, just to give the general public a quick history, the property was owned by Gemini.
Yes.
The primary owner of Gemini had gotten up in age and had stated, as we all can see, he was not going to put any more money into that particular location, and he was certainly true to his word. Then, as we were trying to recruit new grocery stores, nobody wanted to go into a building that was in such disrepair, and that kind of halted our efforts at a new grocery store. Now the company no longer owns it, the bank owns it. They're committed to spending that $2 million on it. So we hope, we can't make any promises, but we hope to the general public that that thing will get up to standard and we can now attract a second grocery store. But everybody asks us that, and like I said, rightfully so. But this is good news. This is very good news.
Yes. This is very promising. And that is the correct
Thank you for asking my second question.
Anything else from up here?
Any idea when we get started on the parks?
So if you've been by a couple of our parks.
Paxton, I saw.
The walkways, we have had the equipment in to really get some of the brush, get some of the areas that were overgrown opened up so we can really see what we have. We've met with the folks from Carolina Park and Play. We are waiting for the final votes to come in for the public survey that was asked to the general public. We're targeting having 600 responses, and now we're in the 400+ amount.
Good.
So we're trying to get some more time for that. The design plans will be brought back to us from the public survey, as well as the landscape design from the gentleman that we're working with on purchasing the equipment from. They'll do that as part of the process. We'd like to share those, see if there's any more public input tweaking, but we have at least started.
Is there a common denominator, like more park benches, more grills, more swing sets, or?
It's a wide mix.
It's a wide mess, okay.
At this point. But we have started that process. We would like to at least start on some of the parks that need the least number of improvements first, and then work our way back.
Gotcha.
Anything else from up here?
Have we targeted which ones we're starting with first?
We have a general idea of which ones were our complete neighborhood parks, but for instance, our MLK Park does have some newer equipment. It's the one that is least likely to need any additional new items, except from a basketball court or a gazebo or covered, bench, covered park, like seating area. Something like that versus Stratford and Hawthorne, it's almost a complete
renovation.
rewrite. It's gonna take longer, so we wanna get the ones that are gonna be the quickest done as quickly as possible, folks, so folks can get out there.
Is Griffith Park gonna stay right where it is, or is that gonna move?
Yes, Griffin
So
Park.
it'll stay right there? Okay, good. There's been a question about Griffith moving once construction gets going on.
And to that point, it was raised to me as well, we can talk about this later, but it was raised to me as well that it could be potentially relocated to Okerman Park, and that some additional discussion would be had on that.
At this point, I think that's very preliminary. If the school system or the county were to do any further outdoor space improvements as part of the high school project, that was originally slated before the final design that's there now. I think it's still a possibility. The timetable on something like that, we ain't even started. The county or the school system hasn't even started the high school project yet. So, we're years away from any type of discussions around that and actually, implementing.
But the park wouldn't be hindered for use during that time, is that correct?
That's right.
Okay.
Anything else from up here? If not, we'll open it up for the public, excuse me, for public comment. And we have one person who has signed up, and that's John Grant.
Thank you all very much. You'll be happy to know I'm not here to talk about the Hilton tonight. It seems that they've done some updates on that. I did have one quick question for you, Councilman Hyde. When you mentioned the part about how nobody wanted to go into that shopping center because it had been left alone, has there been any updates, and I'll ask council as well, on the ordinance proposals that I had presented, or has Mr. Ellis presented anything to council yet? It's been 60 days.
Yeah, we have not received anything back from him.
Okay.
Which is not unusual.
Okay.
Given his workload. And
Oh, I understand.
We throw at him, but we have not.
Okay. The main reason I'm here tonight is, for those of you who don't know, my name is John Grant. My wife Heidi Ross and I have recently purchased the former Garden of Eden building at 103 East King. When the spa at Waterloo closed, the town lost revenue from a business and 5 employees. We are now opening a business. We are going to have a minimum of 3 employees, hopefully a few more. But in order to continue to grow that business, we need the town to take some action. The parking, particular in front of the building, is a mess. The lines are blurred, people are unsure where to park. There are signs posted that clearly say you can't park past this from 8 to 5, yet people park there regularly. On the weekends, on Memorial Day weekend, we had to call the police because someone had turned off of Broad onto King, parked left side to the curb about a foot from the crosswalk, and had the seat back and was sleeping during the rain. And they were there for 2 hours before we called the police and had them removed.
Excuse me, John, where is this at?
103 East King. If you're coming up Broad towards the water here and then you turn left onto King, that's exactly what they did is they turned left, pulled right onto the left side of the curb, parked, and tipped the seat back and went to sleep. And people do that regularly, not sleeping, but they do park regularly on the left side of the curb. There's a cut in the sidewalk pretty much in front of our building, and since a lot of the people, my wife is a massage therapist, we're gonna have an esthetician there to do facials and energy work. We're also gonna have someone to do pedicures and manicures. A lot of our clientele is gonna be a little on the elderly side, and there's a cut through right there in front of our property that would be perfect for a handicap space. The only handicap space in that block right now is all the way down in front of the Hinton, and it's not even marked. You can see it on the pavement, but there's no sign or anything indicating there is any handicap parking there. So we would like for that to be taken into consideration. Also, between our building and the law office there's a little alleyway. And because of the rain and everything, it's now almost like a divot. It's like a trench. And people who are probably going to have to park in the parking lot back there behind the Governor's Pub in there in order to get to our building because there's limited parking in front. We would like the town, if possible, and we'd be even willing to help with this, to put some kind of walkway through there so that the ground is even. And also the parking lot in the back, a lot of times people park right behind the law office, but they park any way they want to. I guess they're running in to go into the drugstore. And we were thinking that perhaps right there at the very back, since a lot of the people who would park that way are probably elderly and just trying to go in and get their prescriptions and get back out, maybe perhaps right at the back of that building, that could be made into 2 handicap parking spots as well.
Is that right behind Buzz?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I have occasion to park there on a regular basis, and I agree with John. It's hard to tell where the spaces are and where they're not, and it's kind of a hodgepodge of different signs and different spots. And I think a lot of it was based on the former use of the Surf, Wind, and Fire building when it was Corporate and Appliance Center, no parking, loading zone, things of that nature. But it is pretty much a mess over there, trying to figure out where you can park, and am I in a spot, am I not in a spot?
And I have spoken with the Surf, Wind, and Fire people. They said they would not be opposed to shortening that loading zone so that it's closer up towards the crosswalk to add maybe 1 or 2 extra spaces there to help alleviate the parking issues downtown.
Yes, that's a public works problem.
Yeah, and we can work with Public Works on this. I think you're exactly right, Councilman High. I think the business ventures at both locations have significantly changed from what they were in a long-established business, and the parking needs and requirements was somewhere set in stone at that time. What we can do is come back with a list, if you remember, of proposed changes, because anything that we change along that, just like we did last week on the section of
Queen.
block of Queen, any changes that we do, we'll have to come back and get council approval. But I think we can get something drawn up. And I think for us in the interim, we can at least primarily get the curbs painted correctly and maybe some of the tick marks in short term pending approval.
And if possible, maybe add a sign that says no left side parking to the curb. Because that is a town ordinance.
Yeah, we can do that.
Great. And before I go,
Taking these one at a time.
I think when we look at each one of these 100 east-west blocks, particularly where parking spaces are valuable and, they blend from residential to historic site to commercial commercial downtown zone, it kind of changes, after 5, it's mainly all residential, and then, from 7 till 5 is probably mostly business, and I think we see that shift. But we'll be glad to take these one at a time, and try to get these correct.
All right, and I did want to commend council on who you all chose to do the paving this time. Elliott and Phillip Street are amazing. That block of wood, they did a fantastic job, as opposed to whoever did that mess on Queen many, many years ago. The quick, simple, efficient, cleaned up their mess. You all did a great job with that, so thank you all very much for that part.
Okay, we have anybody else? Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor and Council, you may remember a few months ago when violence was on the community's mind, and you had this big gathering up at Shalom International on North Broad Street. And at that time, I raised the whole point that improved lighting would be helpful in dealing with community violence. I simply want to say I hope it's in your budget for the coming year, and if not, I hope you'll use the next 17 days to address it, because I think it's something that's doable. I doubt you're going to solve all the problems in 1 year, but I think a significant step now would be beneficial in many ways. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
Have we included anything for lighting in the budget?
There
Address
are,
some of those concerns?
Yeah, and John, Mr. Mitchell, to address some of your concerns, we have made some lighting improvements. You're exactly correct. We can't blanket fix townwide. We have started in some of our hotspot areas where there are the oldest or lack of lighting that needs to be updated, or some areas that just have the greatest need for increased safety. And I know that the electric department has continued to work on that. And it's one of those we're really working on the outside kind of back end. And so I know some of our perimeter streets, a lot of the lighting, particularly in these residential areas, have really been picked up.
Corey and John, I had a recent meeting with Dr. Michael Sasser, and given your background with the County Commission and also with the Board of Education, you'll be interested to know that as a part of the high school, new high school project, that Dr. Sasser is going to try to work with the town, the school board, and the county in coming up with a good landscape plan and lighting plan for the entire perimeter, so that whole block looks good and is well lit. And they've got bigger fish to fry right now, but that is on his radar.
Yes, ma'am.
Just a question, in looking at the budget, I didn't see anything set aside for the ambassadors. Is that in the budget to retain the ambassadors for?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And that's included in our auxiliary officer budget line item for the PD.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, if there one else, at this time, we're going to go into closed session to discuss a personnel matter, so we'll have to ask the public to leave at this time. Thank you for coming and attending. Okay. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Property and personnel.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Hi, Jack.